Half Wheel's coverage of the 2024 PCA Convention and Trade Show is sponsored by Drew Estates Blackened S84 Shade. Half Wheel's coverage of the 2024 PCA Convention and Trade Show is sponsored by Drew Estates Blackened S84 Shade to Black.
That's not good. Hi everyone, my name is Charlie Minato, and I am here at our Dallas, Texas offices back from the 2024 PCA Convention and Trade Show, which took place this past week in Las Vegas. Across the table from me and below me, I guess, on the screen today is Brooks Whittington. Brooks, how are you today?
Tired, but doing well.
Cool. All right, so today's a recap show. We're going to take some questions. I have mentioned this before, but normally we do these practice runs. Today we did not, so
Nope.
Cool. That was
Great.
Yeah, no, that was not.
I got it.
Nope, it needs to get fixed entirely. No, the tripod is broken, Brooks. Yeah, so Brooks is off screen fixing the tripod that he just knocked over. Brooks, that's not going to work.
Okay. All right. How's that?
I don't know.
That's good. There you go. All right, we're back. We're back.
That was
better than ever.
I don't know about that. All right, so we did not do a practice run, and Brooks just knocked over a camera.
Sorry.
So this could be a real clusterfuck, or it could be a lot funnier. We'll see. We have done the bare minimum amount of prep. We're going to go over some questions that we asked ourselves before this trade show started, or before we left for this trade show, and we're also going to answer some other questions that people probably have. We'll also take questions from the audience. I don't know if we're going to take questions about how large Brooks' hands are, but it seems to be a theme of the comment section. All right, Brooks, what are you smoking?
Smoking today, I am smoking Usagi from...
Smoking what?
Usagi? What is this called?
Wagashi? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, from Dunbarton, one of the new ones that... one of the new production that he released at the show, or showed off at the show. What about you, Charlie? It does have a sweetened tip cap, by the way, if you're wondering.
I was not. I'm going to smoke a Pitoro Jacinto? Juancito?
Jesus Christ.
The actual... I forget if there's an extra I in there. The new size from Pitoro. One of the few samples that I accepted at the trade show. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. What cigar... Now, we should preface this before we get started any further. Brooks, you were at the trade show for all 3 days, as was Brian Burt. I was only there for a day, so I have a very different perspective. Normally, I would be the one, and maybe it will still be the case, that would talk the most here. But I do feel like a lot of my insights are very, very limited because of the amount of time that I was there. And because the day that I was there was the least attended of the 3 days, I suspect. So you have probably better perspectives about a lot of these questions, or more accurate perspectives, even if they are still somewhat incorrect because they're coming from your mouth. But let's see where we go with this. What cigar did you hear the most about?
Hold on a second. I'd also like to point out that unlike most years when we've done these things where we're running around and we're visiting 12 to 15 booths a day, we're running around quite a bit more, trying to cover as many as possible. So there are things that I didn't even see. Quite a few things, actually, that I didn't see. If it wasn't on my list to actually cover, then I didn't see it, to be clear.
That's not
for the most part. There are obvious exceptions.
But also, that's not any different than normal. You saw more way more companies than you normally see.
This is true,
So-
but I didn't have time to go by some of the companies I really wanted to go and see.
That whole disclosure.
For example, ST DuPont, for example, I wanted to go see them, and I couldn't find the time to do it.
The whole this year was different in that regard. This year was actually better in that regard.
Well, I said it was different, not better. To be clear, what cigar did I hear the most about other than Legends, which was far and away the most prevalent answer to that question. The cigar that I heard talked about most was the Lancero sampler from Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. This was something that was released, announced before the show, and 10 different Lanceros, 9 of which have not been released as of yet. And it was a fairly big deal that people were talking about quite a bit. Made sure that people wanted to go in there and made sure to order them. I heard of a couple of stores ordering 20 or more and samplers, and it was very much talked about. I don't know if that was the same with you, Charlie, on the third day.
I'm confused. Didn't you say that the cigar that you heard the most about was Fuente's Black Pink?
No, that was the cigar that
Also, you're about to burn our gray card.
On what?
You're about to burn our gray card with your cigar.
Oh, sorry about that. No, I don't think it was. At least not to me. For the number of people who were talking about it anyway, and talking about ordering it.
Could have sworn that's what you told me yesterday. But anyways, I would say that the cigar that I heard the most about was the Padron Family Reserve 60 or 60th anniversary. From Padron. Some people did get to smoke this cigar. I saw Nick Danovich, I think. Someone outside of the Padrons had one lit. I was not one of those lucky people to get one of them. So I cannot tell you how the cigar is. I guess it probably tastes like a Padron if I just had to guess. So they have differences and nuances between them, but they oftentimes do taste quite similar. I did hear that it's seemingly not clear if there was actually a price that was quoted to someone. Someone seemed to indicate that they were quoted a price by Padron, or maybe when I was in the booth, I think I overheard one of the Padrons saying it's going to be roughly this, but it's going to be more than 50 is from what I understand. I don't know if it's going to be more than 100. 60 seems to be the logical price point here if you just had to do it, but who knows.
I like the shape.
I wish the lighting was a lot better. Not just slightly better, a lot better in that booth. Alright, what cigar are you most interested in trying? Which is not the cigar that other people were talking about the most. Brooks Whittington, surprised by this answer.
Why? I like the first one. This is the...
apparently, we have a box with very few cigars left in it.
There you go. I like the first release from J.C. Newman. And
you should probably tell people what this is.
This is... I don't remember what the name of it is. What is the name of it?
It is the Leroy Neiman Collector's Edition 2024, although the back of that band says Collector's Edition Cafe Left Bank.
Left Bank, right.
But it's assuming the naming convention from last year sticks, Leroy Neiman Collector's Edition 2024.
Yeah. So this was the release that they did last year for Leroy Neiman, the artist, and the first one was very, very good. And I'm really looking forward to trying to see what the second one tastes like for sure. I love the art on it. I love the packaging. Presumably will be the same. I didn't actually see the packaging for this because was not able to.
The packaging won't be the same.
No, in terms of having the lithograph and all that other good stuff that the first one had.
It would appear to be the same concept.
But I love the first one, and I'm really looking forward to trying it.
I really like that cigar a lot. I smoked one of them during one of these live shows. At least the first one. This is a 7x50 Churchill. Same blend, Ecuadorian Habano Rosado wrapper. I believe the fillers include Florida Sun-Grown binder, and then I don't remember the fillers off the top of my head. Called Left Bank Cafe was selected, although that says Cafe Left Bank. I don't know if that's the right title for the painting. But Leroy Neiman was the official painter of 5 Olympiads, so they chose a Paris themed painting and sort of all tied it in because the Summer Olympics this year are in Paris. These cigars will be out in July. The Olympics start in late July. For me, it's pretty simple. Although I'm not entirely sure this is actually a new cigar. I think for a long time I've avoided the "what's your favorite cigar" question, but I do think that if I'm being quite honest, the answer is pretty clear. It's the Don Carlos Lancero from Fuente. That is the cigar that, in the times when I'm able to sort of smoke whatever on a clean palate, that's the cigar that I oftentimes reach for the most, even though it's not a cigar that you can really buy. There are ways to get it. Fuente sells it in samplers, like in the La Gran Fumada sampler. There have been CFC auctions for the Fuentes and Newman's foundations. Fuente also will just give them to people at events or other things like that. I'm fortunate enough to get them. It is a cigar that I wish that they sold. It's very, very good as someone that likes both Cameron wrappers and Lanceros. This is the Man Lancero. The Man came out in 2017, I believe, at an event at Holtz at Fuente Mania, and then it shipped to stores a year later. Maybe I have those dates a year off, but it debuted and then at Fuente Mania at Holtz, and then was released in limited quantities in a Robusto size with the first iteration of the Don Carlos Humidors. It's a tweaked version of the Don Carlos blend. Carlito Fuente said that he added some filler tobaccos from Chateau de la Fuente to that filler blend. I think I still prefer the Don Carlos blend over the tweaked versions, other than maybe Senior Blend, of which this is not, though I would love a Senior Blend Lancero if that ever came to be. I believe this is probably that tweaked blend in a Lancero size, but maybe it's just Don Carlos repackaged with new fancier bands. This is supposed to be on shelves before holiday season, so look for it in November. No word on pricing. I would suspect it will be very limited and allocated, but I'm certainly very interested in trying it, given how much I really, really enjoy the Don Carlos Lancero.
You do enjoy them, and I can't wait to try it either, for sure. But I do wonder what the difference is going to be, as you said.
Yeah,
you're basically an expert on on the blend. So certainly
Don Carlos Lancero. Yeah. I mean, I've smoked more of them than the vast majority of people have. Yes, that is correct. But I would not consider myself an expert. I like the Don Carlos the Man, but I would rather smoke a regular Don Carlos in that size. And the same thing goes for the Personal Reserve, which I don't believe to be Senior Blend. I don't know. That was a blend that he smoked. It was his blend. Carlito kind of stayed away from it. Since his passing, Carlito has done tributes to his father by releasing these cigars, and has sort of had his own takes on the blend. And they have been good, but don't have to mess with a good thing. I'm very curious about the Lanceros, though, and we'll oftentimes quote Brooks by saying the original was always better.
Always.
All right, Brooks, what is the new cigar accessory that you are most interested in trying?
So this is where the situation that I covered Colibri and Lotus, and out of those,
did you cover quality importers?
Two and quality importers and
Prometheus.
Yes,
you covered a lot.
Prometheus didn't have anything new.
Yeah, but you covered a lot of accessory companies, to be clear.
Yeah, three, and I guess I did Vissel too. But listen, so to be clear, when I saw this, I was really, really impressed with the idea. This is the Omni Cutter from Lotus, and what this is a cutter that has 4 different blades inside of it. That's part of it. One of them is a 64 ring gauge single guillotine blade on the bottom there. One of them is a 64 ring gauge.
Isn't that a double guillotine blade?
I guess it is.
I don't know. I mean,
apologies.
Yeah.
And one of them is a 64 ring gauge deep, ultra deep, according to the company, V-cut. And then on the top and the bottom are 2
punch cutters.
Punch cutters. Thanks. One of them is 6, and one of them is an 8 millimeter. And they come up from the top and the bottom. They're hidden otherwise, and it's a very impressive looking thing. A very impressive looking cutter, not too heavy, and very well made from what I could tell when I was picking it up and playing with it. And it's really nice to be able to have all of those in one specific option. I'm really looking forward to trying it out and seeing how well it cuts. But I was impressed with the look of it and the finish. Price is $99.95, and I was impressed with it.
So this looks like it came from the same factory that did the Vissel's Trident.
Mm-hmm. Would not shock me.
As well as the Porsche design one that's basically the exact same thing as the Trident.
Yes, could be. I don't know for sure, but that's certainly.
Yeah,
possible.
I mean it's the same design.
It looks like the same
modified,
basic design, but
the shark tooth blades that I am skeptical of.
The punch cutters are really, really well integrated into this, from what I could tell. And
I
again,
feel
I
like
just
the
played this for a
Vissel
little
one
bit.
was the same story though. I felt like those were pretty well.
Certainly, but it's not that they didn't have. I don't believe the Vissel one had two of them on either side.
Why do you need
top and bottom?
I mean, okay. So I think that.
Why do you need them? Well, maybe not. But
that
regardless,
gets to my whole thing. Like I don't fault Lotus for introducing this. I do sort of wonder though. I feel like all the people that needed a cutter that had multiple different ways to cut a cigar have probably already purchased it at this point. Like, again, not faulting Lotus here. Somebody else has another.
Sure, they could always purchase more. I mean, certainly they're.
Yeah, I guess I just am a little like at this point. It seems like this concept has been played out. I'm curious to know if their market is any like. If you thought this idea was cool when you and you saw the Vissel or the Porsche design one, I imagine you probably would have bought it. I forget who it is. Was it Zycar has another dual? Not with a punch, but they had like a. They have a dual cutter, right?
Correct.
The,
yeah.
The XV combination.
They had right. They had the guillotine and the V cutter combination for sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
With no punches on that.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like at this point we've seen this concept get played out. I would also say the other thing. I don't know if it was mentioned in either of your reviews of the of either one of these things, but I am curious about the whether or not the like ergonomics of it. It just seems like it would be better to have individual cutters or to have them in the stacked body like the Colibri and the Zycar have without the punch cutters versus these on the side. It may just be a personal preference of mine, but it seems like it's a lot for I don't know. It just seems like a very large body, especially if these are cutting 64 ring gauge. Is it larger than the Vissel and the Porsche design to your recollection?
It is, yes. It's a little bit thicker for sure.
But is like the footprint of the case larger?
About the same.
Huh.
Give or take.
All right.
That's a different shape, so it's a little bit difficult to, the Porsche design is a square, a rectangle basically, and this is tapered or curved.
Yeah, it's the same shape.
But it's essentially the same.
All right. For me, I don't know if we got pictures from Brian Burt. I didn't see any on our server, but for me, I only saw this from a distance, but it's fascinating. This is called the Stogie Mag. It is an AR receiver, or modeled after an AR receiver. I'm not a gun, or an AR mag. Sorry, not a receiver. I'm not but apparently, like, it's the exact same dimension, so it could fit into an AR receiver. I'm not the firearms expert here, so please bear with me. It's a 6-count humidor, like travel humidor that functions like a gun magazine for your cigars. Now, what Brian Burt told us is that the dimensions of the cigars are pretty particular. It's a 5 1/4 by 52, I believe. Robusto extra size, what this is made to fit. It can fit some cigars that are a bit smaller than that, but I guess it doesn't work as well. To be clear, there is no practical need for this nonsense, but it is interesting, and I suspect that if it mildly works, they will be able to sell a decent amount of them. It is $90. I feel like if they could find a way to make this at say $60, I think that would be a big win, because I think it's going to be kind of like a more of a birthday gift or type of situation than it's going to be like this is something I need in my life. Because again, I don't know the practical values here. It does have a custom humidification packet from Integra Boost. I don't know how well or what the entire mechanism is. We did purchase one, or two of them actually. If it works well enough, we'll review it. And but certainly I did not see. I only covered accessory-wise LE Blue and ST DuPont, which oddly weren't selling the Stogie Mag. And there were some knives in the DuPont booth, though, because they're French. But not a lot of new models from those two companies, just a lot of new colors and design elements. And so amongst what I saw, albeit from a distance, this was the most fascinating thing by a mile.
And Brian said it worked. Apparently, you push it up and it comes out. So whether it
Well, like worked at dispensing cigars.
Right.
Yes. Worked at humidifying the cigars or protecting them is a different story. Yeah. So that's the Stogie Mag. What was the coolest new cigar you saw, which is a slightly different conversation. So not necessarily the one you were most interested in trying and not the one that you necessarily heard the most about, but just like the thing you're like, oh, that's cool.
I love the, it's not, what I would consider to be, classically cool, but I love the LFD 30th. It's a really good looking cigar and a really nice looking humidor. And I was impressed visually. It is wonderful. It is extremely impressive. And I was very, very impressed with the look of it. I did not get to try it. I haven't seen them outside of the box, but just looking at the humidor, I was very, very impressed with how it looks and the way that it presents itself. I love the chisel. I've always loved the chisel Vitola, it's not very often you see a foot band on an LFD. It just looks great to me.
Yeah, for me, it was the Tampa Smokers thing. I mean, I only saw like 20 companies, and I don't know, third of them didn't have any new cigars for one reason or another. And the reason why this thing is on here is like the packaging is cool, but not cool. But it's a cigar that's a baseball bat. We don't see very many of these that often, and Brooks infamously reviewed one and gave it the lowest score in the site's history. They went heavy with this baseball theme. It's going to be interesting to sort of see these. I suspect they will be, at least initially pretty big sellers just because it's going to be like, oh, yes, baseball bat cigar. It is interesting that they are coming out for ahead of the World Series, which obviously, like, makes sense in the baseball tie-in, although that does also mean that, like, once the World Series is over, it's going to definitively not be baseball season, and the baseball-themed cigars are going to be sitting there. I think it would probably be better for these cigars to come out earlier in the year if it was possible. I don't know if it is. Yeah, and the humidor that's kind of pictured behind that also is supposed to be out in October, limited to just 30 humidors. So, I don't know if we got one from you, Brooks, on here.
I didn't see any. What did you have? I didn't see anything.
So I had two candidates. I ultimately went with this chessboard from Ellie Blue.
Didn't even see it.
Which I want to say was like $4,000, but I don't have the price list in front of me, so I'm not 100% sure. So it matches my favorite humidor, which is on the left from them, that blue cabinet humidor. The whole board pops up, and then there are the chess pieces below, which are made out of metal, nice and heavy, absolute fingerprint magnets. That's kind of what they look like on the chessboard. Not a chess guy, but I do know that after a Queen's Gambit, or the Queen's Gambit, or the Queen's Gambit. The sales of chessboards were skyrocketing, but that was a pandemic thing, and I don't know what the chessboard sales look like these days. The sort of honorary mention, the thing that didn't get in there, and the reason why I took the chessboard over it was the chessboard's actually for sale. Illusione had a custom slot machine that was restored by Dion's brother, and I'd seen it on social media before, but it was in the booth this year, no one apparently, by the time I showed up, had hit the jackpot yet. But like a fully functioning, but a fully customized Illusione slot machine, but not for sale. So a tiebreaker went to.
Did it have some UFOs in the?
It did. It did have some UFOs imagery, exactly what you would expect. All right. I don't know if we have pictures. I don't think we do have pictures for this. What was the most impressive?
We didn't shoot booth pictures.
New booth that you saw, Brooks.
I love Placencia's.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, and look, it won the award.
That means absolutely nothing
for the best. Well, a little point.
One year, Nicholas Melillo was in the foundation booth. Was like, I remember when he was setting it up because I think I went to lunch with him, and then they came back, and there was this pillar, like this giant ass. I think it was the last time we were in the LVCC, to be quite honest, and it was this giant ass column that was in the middle of his booth, and like. It was on the booth floor map, but I don't think Nicholas had been like explicitly told, hey, there's going to be this giant column blocking a corner of your booth. Yeah, 4 days later, Nicholas got whatever size booth he was. He got the best booth award, and I was like, oh, Nick got the booth award because he bitched the most.
I don't know about that, but Since I think
It was before the new foundation booth, which is worthy of a booth award. This was just oh, we accidentally forgot to tell you about this giant column in your booth. Here you go. Have this trophy. Yeah, but the Placencia booth did win an award.
yes, and I liked it quite a bit. It was very, very well done, easy to move around in, lots of space to see new products and to sit down if you want to. It was a little smaller, I believe, than or quite a bit smaller than their former booth last year, but because that was massive. I mean, they had a friggin' bar inside of it, for God's sakes.
Yeah, but this one had those offices that the old one didn't have.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if it was.
That's true. They had meeting rooms.
So I agree with you. When I saw the Placencia booth, now I saw some of this at TPE because it's modular, so they brought 2/3 of it to TPE, but the ceiling I don't think was entirely the same. I would say it didn't strike me as this is a much smaller square footage, but the offices make it smaller, and the fact that it was enclosed because it had a ceiling and a roof and everything, that makes it feel a lot smaller from a spatial perspective.
Yes, but it also gives it more of a design element to it too, as well. The ceiling did, and I love.
It looks like an interactive.
I love the look of it.
I'm curious to know what other booths, in terms of new booths that I saw. La Polina had a new booth.
He did.
That was not as impressive, I would say, from a visual standpoint, but I actually liked it a lot more. It reminds me a lot of Rocky's booth because it really relied on displays, which means that it's a lot cheaper when it comes to shipping that booth, a lot easier to pack up. I've always believed that Rocky's got the best big booth because it's so efficient, and La Polina, which is led by some people that used to work with Rocky, not entirely surprising to see them lean into that concept. Drew Estate, obviously, new booth. Interestingly, not the booth they had at TPE, as far as I could tell. But that booth didn't seem certainly not the booth they had at IPCPR 2019.
No, and it was busy all the time, and I could barely see the booth for most of the stuff that, it was the people that were in there sometimes. But it was very, it was laid out. It was very, very spacious in terms of the amount of space it was, but nothing going in past years they've had bridges and things like that. Nothing like that. It was all on the ground.
The bridge has been.
I
forget when they got rid of it at TPE, but yeah, it's been a minute since they've had that. Any other new booths that you saw? I don't know if the general booth was new. That was a Brian Burt coverage.
I didn't see it.
Altatus, did you cover that?
I did cover Altatus.
Was it one booth or was it 3 satellite booths?
No, it was just one that I saw.
All right, well that would be a new booth probably. But I think that they brought...
But I hadn't covered Altatus before, so I didn't.
I think they told me they were bringing part of their TP booth. Anyways, I think next year will be a year where you see a lot of new booths because of New Orleans. In some instances, I've been told that it is cheaper to get a new booth than it is to ship the booth from Las Vegas to New Orleans, and I suspect that you're going to see a lot of that go on.
I was told by multiple manufacturers that was exactly what they were going to do.
Yeah. And
I was like, "Are you serious? Is it cheaper? It's just cheaper to do it." I'm like, "Wow."
My understanding is with some,
and they could sell those. That one, theirs apparently, from what they said.
My understanding is some of these booths, it is cheaper to just get a new booth every year. Now that may be because you rent the booth versus buying it, but it makes sense. It's one of the inefficiencies with this particular trade show is that most of these companies, and that's why Placencia's booth stands out here, is because it's modular, so they can use part of it for TPE. Most of these booths only get used once a year. And then they go into storage, and so it gets very expensive when you're only using them once a year. Boveda, for example, they get to use their booth a lot because of all the other conventions that they go to, and that makes a big difference in terms of the cost and sort of spreading them out. All right, so let's get to everyone's favorite topic. How was attendance? Brooks, you're going to have to lead the dance here because I was not present for the first 2 days.
So when we walked into the booth when we walked into the show on the first day, the first morning, it was busy.
Was this the first day or was this?
That was the first day.
Okay.
It was very obvious.
Probably not what you saw when you walked in.
Basically, that's exactly what I saw because I took a picture as soon as I walked in the door. Brian and I were both walked in at the same time, and we were both blown away by how many people were there. It was a lot of people. And as we were trying to work around our way around for the first few booths, it was
a lot of people where though.
Everywhere. You walk out and the halls were packed. The booths were packed. You would just walk in and there was just a
when
massive...
When you say the halls were... There's only one hall.
The walkways. Excuse me.
Yes. Okay. But that gets to a question I have here, which is that it felt packed, right?
Yeah. It looked packed. It felt packed. Yes.
But also, there's no question, sort of like the Placencia booth here, the show floor got condensed into a smaller space.
Yes, certainly.
And the distance in between one booth to another, the hallways in particular seemed like they were a lot smaller.
And you mean the walkways?
Yeah.
But yes, and look, there's no doubt that was part of it, right? But I'm telling you that when you walked into that hall, it was very obvious there was a bunch of people. It was obvious when you were walking around and trying to talk to manufacturers. Everybody was busy for the first 2, maybe 3 hours. And then gradually it started to fall off. And at the end of the day, it was very obvious that there were quite a fewer people there, just in general overall, than there had been in the morning. And that continued the second day.
Which I find interesting because I asked, when I showed up on day 3, I asked some people that I was talking with about that, if they had a similar experience to you guys, where they felt there was a noticeable difference between before lunch and after lunch. And a couple of them said no. A couple of them said, like, actually, we picked up after lunch. I think Placencia was one of them that mentioned that day 2, they felt like after lunch was a lot busier. Certainly on day 3, post-lunch felt like, or as the day went on, it felt like it got busier, ironically. But I think a lot of this attendance stuff, it seems pretty par for the course for what it's been. Day 1 has been the busiest day for a while. It's been a noticeable difference between day 1 and day 2. I would say the biggest drop-off for me that I found takes place between day 2 and day 3, not between day 3 and day 4. Certainly the differences between day 2 and day 4 are massive. But I'm not surprised. I get that it felt busier. I'm sure that it was slightly better attended, would be my guess, but not like 20% better attended. I suspect, I think I said less than 5% would be my guess.
That would not shock me.
But yeah, it just seemed, it definitely seemed like people said day 1 was really busy and that there was a drop off between day 2. And then when I showed up on day 3, the morning of day 3 was like, whoa.
Yeah, you walk in, it was
yeah, it was not good.
It was not looking great.
But again, attendance doesn't really matter for the PCA. Like, it matters so long as it's not falling off a cliff or as long as it's not gone up by 50%. 10-15% here or there is not going to really make much of a difference for this trade show. It's not going to make much of a difference about whether or not people show up. As far as exhibitors, which is really what matters, is how much square footage exhibitors take. And I was not there, but I didn't get the sense in talking to people and talking to you guys that there was a noticeable, like, that this was a new chapter for the PCA in terms of, like, or the trade show in terms of attendance. It seemed like it was par for the course. Obviously, since 2019, everything's kind of been up in the air because 19, then the 4 companies pulled out. You had COVID. You had the 2021 show, which was weird. I would say 22 was better attended than 21. 23 better attended than 22. Not going to surprise me to learn that 24 was better attended than 23. But I know last year the numbers that they put out would indicate that 23 was better attended than 19. I have a real tough time believing that that was the case. And I don't think that's necessarily the PCA's fault, because I also think that the brick-and-mortar retail category has probably shrunk in terms of the number of owner-operators from 19 to 23. But those are all guesses. If we really wanted to have answers here, there is one solution, which is to scan the badges, and the PCA won't do that. And if they did, that would give... We would know. We would know exactly what the drop-off is between days 1 and days 2 and days 2 and days 3, and we would know how many people were there and where they were from and whatnot. You had mentioned before the show that you had talked to somebody that had said that the date change from having this show typically in July to having it in April, one of the big advantages for them was that they felt like there was going to be a lot more Northeastern retailers.
Yes.
I did not get the sense that that really is what happened.
No?
No. I talked to a couple of brokers, 3 brokers that specifically deal in the Northeast. And I asked them if they had more customers here, and they all said yes. But I asked if, like, was it noted, like, was it a dramatic increase? And they said no. And the other thing that they told me, which isn't entirely surprising, is that a lot of their customers, or at least one of them told me, that a lot of the orders that they were writing, their customers were asking those orders to not get shipped until the spring, not get shipped until May, not get shipped until June, and that was kind of screwing that guy over because he doesn't get paid on those invoices until they get shipped. And he was like, it helped, I guess, but it's not like my sales in March went way up because of it. It just meant that I have orders now on the books for June or May. I mean, did you get the sense that there was a lot more retail, or there were retailers that were here that previously had not been here?
I got the sense from talking to people that there were more, but not like, thousands of more retailers. No,
well,
absolutely not.
There's not even 1,000. Well, people,
not
yes,
a substantial number. I certainly thought that there, again, I don't know for sure because I don't know every single person who came, but it seemed like to me that in the beginning, from before, that I thought there'd be more participation, and it doesn't seem like that was the case.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm in specific. Like, were there more retailers from the Northeast and other colder climates? And were there people that previously hadn't been here before?
I did talk to a couple of different retailers who had not been here before, who did not come last year, rather. They had been before, but not last year, who were thrilled that they could come because it was a time when they were not busy, as busy, but certainly not, 20 people.
Okay. Yeah, the other thing that stands out to me about attendance is that when I asked people how their days 1 and days 2 went, I heard a lot of people talking about attendance. Almost no one brought up sales, which leads me to believe that the sales numbers may not be as strong as they have been, which isn't surprising. We've gone through 3 record-setting years, one after another. I get the sense that if people were blowing sales numbers out the water, that would be what they would lead with, because that's what matters more than how many appointments you had for the most part. That said, I'm sure that there's a bunch of smaller companies that are going to watch this video and be like, oh, well, we had the best year ever. And it's like, yeah, if you're a relatively new company or a smaller company, that is certainly to be expected or possible. It's not at all surprising. It's more the companies that have really established sales forces. Those companies, when the attendance is bad, that's when we get to hear about how great their sales are. We hear it was fewer people, but everyone that was here was buying, no tire kickers, that nonsense. And there's some truth to it, but also, as I've written about before, the number that I'm most fascinated with that I don't think very many companies track, but I think would be the number that you should track. I mean, obviously sales are very important. The amount of appointments you have, quite frankly, is important. But if I was a national sales manager, the other metric, or an owner of a cigar company, the other metric that I would want to have is how many cigars did we sell? Because that gives me an idea of kind of where my customers are and where I am, in terms of their humidors. Because with the price increases and with the discounts, you can warp the sales numbers and the revenue numbers pretty easily just based on the discounts. And like, if you wanted an example of how you could do this right, one example would be that you could offer no discounts, but you could do giveaway cigars, which is a discount, but it wouldn't show up on the bottom line the same way. So a good example, like if let's say you're a retailer, I'm a cigar company, right? And you buy $1,000 worth of cigars. Let's say that's 200 cigars, right? Well, I could discount them 15%, so you're only paying $8.50 for those 200 cigars. Or what I could do is I could be like, hey, Brooks, I'm going to sell you 900 cigars at full price, and then I'm going to give you another 100 cigars. Or I'm going to sell you 1,000 cigars at full price and then give you another 100 cigars. Well, if I sell you 1,000 cigars at full price, that's way more than the $8.50. And so that's why that number of units sold value is very important to me if I was trying to figure out, how great this was from a sales perspective. And oh, by the way, it's probably better that it's not the best sales year ever, because that just means you gave away more in discounts for most of these companies. Trying to just go through our notes here on attendance. To me, I was not here. Did you stop by? You guys picked up your badges. Did you take a look at all at the seminars on Friday?
We were doing other things, but I heard that they were well attended.
They looked really well attended, from what I gathered, which is a nice sign. And that certainly has been a problem for the PCA, 5-6 years ago, that was a huge issue. These seminars would have dozens of people, and now they're consistently getting hundreds of people. I will say, and like that should be celebrated. They had a roundtable discussion, which they've done for the past few years. There was they debuted half of Pete Johnson's movie that's being made by the Hand-Rolled guys. Nicholas Melillo did a seminar on the history of Connecticut tobacco. I'm sure there's one that I'm forgetting. There was the annual meeting. One thing that stands out to me, if anyone from the PCA is watching and is actually open to suggestions, I would say that having like one that would be helpful for making these retailers better retailers seems like something that is missing from this. I'm not saying bring back the guy from Massachusetts that owns that pet store food chain that was here forever talking about coupon books, but something about like effective retail strategies, even if it's not like the sexiest thing like coupon books, but you're talking more about like
those are pretty sexy.
How do we improve, back end efficiency, from an ops perspective, I think would be a very helpful thing. John McTavish, who may or may not have been there, he said that it was the best Friday seminar series to date by a wide margin. Yeah. All right. Let's see. If you do have questions, by the way, you guys can ask them. We'll probably scroll through them at the end.
Probably.
Did you, Brooks, think that this is from Patrick, did you think having it at the LVCC made any kind of difference in attendance versus the Venetian?
I don't know that. I mean, I heard a lot of people say that they preferred the Venetian, and I don't know that it made that big of an impact on necessarily on attendance, but certainly there were a lot of people who just really preferred the Venetian and having everything right there in the hotel, which we talked about before. It was annoying to have to get up and have to go, get into the car and go to the cool. We did it on the Vegas Loop, which I hadn't seen before, so that was pretty cool. But it was annoying to have to do it after the first time, and it would have been a lot better to just walk down there and be there in the hotel for sure. In terms of how it affected attendance, I'm not sure that it did necessarily. I certainly didn't hear anybody say, "Well, I was going to come, but it's at the LBCC, so screw that."
I suspect that there were a number of people that did that because they really enjoyed the Venetian, and wait till we go to New Orleans next year because I suspect that will be a theme. I will say, there is one positive to me on the LVCC side. Not having it at the Venetian, I suspect, means less partying. Not that there was no partying, but I do think that not having the centralized one big bar or one small bar that then turns into a big crowd of cigar people like it is at the Palazzo every year, I suspect that means that the median time that people were going to bed was actually improved, which might help them get on the show floor. All right, now that we've beaten that horse into the ground, that should be were there is many new products. Yeah. This should be simple. The answer is unequivocally no.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, Drew Estate really stood out in my mind. Where
no. I don't think it's fair to compare Drew Estate to what they did 5 years ago.
Well, they had what, 2 new releases?
Explain to me why it's fair to compare. Explain to me why it's okay to compare, why it's legitimate to compare what they did 5 years ago.
I'm not necessarily comparing. I was just surprised that they didn't have more than those 2 releases.
We have a whole question about Drew Estate here, but I think you have to be very, very careful with Drew Estate because they have not been here for 5 years.
Sure.
They are a different company than where they were 5 years ago. I think it'd be very unfair to take most companies and go, okay, well, let's compare what you did in 2019 pre-COVID to what you did in 2020.
I didn't say I was comparing them.
But they haven't been here.
Sure.
So the point of comparison is to 2019.
My point is that they only had 2 new releases, right?
Yes.
And I was surprised that it was not more.
But if you look at what they've done,
Willie had nothing.
But if you look at what they've done for the last 3 years, this shouldn't be surprising.
Okay.
They don't look at what they first of all, if you take a very 30,000-foot view, the way that they deal with new releases is very different. They're using those freestyle live shows to introduce them, which means they're not going to want to show off everything all at once.
Sure.
Because otherwise they can't do the freestyle live packs throughout the year. So that is the idea that they were going to show up with 2 or 3 new releases, like big new full lines. That was probably unlikely because it's going to hurt their freestyle live shows, which they clearly want to keep doing, and I think they've had some success with.
And it certainly seems to be working for them.
Secondly, The other thing that they've been doing over the summer is they'll bring back Dojo Dogma. They'll tell you that there's some sort of Liga Privada limited edition that they've done every year consistently, right? Like that's been a thing. Or they put Herreras y Lanceros and Tubos. Like, wouldn't surprise me there. I don't know how much of this should be. Like, I think they may have a different philosophy when it comes to trade shows about do we really want to announce 7 things all at once. It also may be the case that it's not ready because it's in March. But again, I think trying to just say, well, when they normally come to IPSBR, this is what they typically do. And it's like, well, Freestyle Live didn't exist, and COVID also wasn't a thing the last time they were here. So, no shit.
Well, let me ask you a question then. Did any company surprise you in terms of how few or how many releases they had, new releases they had that you saw?
No.
No surprises.
No, I mean I don't. No, I can't think. I don't know what most of these companies did, but I'm not gonna be surprised by any company that doesn't have many new releases because of the timing of the show, and also just sort of apathy towards new releases. In terms of the companies that felt like they had a lot of new releases, General did what they had done previously at IPSBR trade shows and what they have done with Forge, the sister company for the last couple of trade shows, or I guess the last trade show the year before was the Room 101 thing. But like, they had like one new release for their different brands. That's what they had done last time they were at IPSBR. I don't think it's fair to compare IPSBR 2019 General to 2024 General. It just happened to be that philosophy had not changed. LA Blue and SC DuPont did what they always do. They have more new releases than anybody else that I had to cover. Fuente did what it does. It like showed off a bunch of things that it doesn't want to talk about.
More than in the past, though.
Fuente.
Yeah, new. They were showing off more new products.
Well, it depends on what you consider a product. I mean, like there was the Don Carlos the Man Lanceros. That was, I would call it a product. There was the La Gran Fumada, which is new for the U.S., but that was released at Ciro's event in 2023 at the Fuente Cigar Club in Santo Domingo. There was the book sampler that's going to ship in a couple weeks that was here last year. And then there was Opus 25 in a Perfecto size that has not been shown off. The rest of what Fuente...
and the new.
The rest...
The black pink.
So what I was about to say is that the rest of what Fuente showed off was just boxes. Like, yeah. Like, it was just packaging. The black pink, there was no cigars. And then there was a whole bunch of 5-count boxes of existing product. But in terms of, like, new products, it's Opus 25, which they did not take orders for, didn't want to talk about, no idea when that's coming out. I believe it'll be this year. And also, like, it's a new size. There was the Man Lanceros, didn't take orders for, don't want to talk about, going to ship this year. And then the sampler that was here last year. So... Oh, and Legends. Legends was off in a corner. But also not new. So it's a bit of an interesting parse. No, I don't... None of them really... Oh, I take that back. There is one that stands out. I don't entirely know all the details, though, because I don't know how much of it was shared before the show and how much of it... Like, I am unaware of it. EP Carrillo has a new line of some sort. I know we wrote about the Sumatra version. They have, like, whatever this thing is called. There's a Sumatra, a Cameroon, a Maduro, a Nicaragua, a Honduras. There was, like, 6 or 7 elements.
Did they release a new pyramid?
It is a new pyramid of brands. So, yeah, that was surprising. But I don't know if how much of that was announced before the show. I did not read Patrick's article about it. I just saw the headline. It was in the midst of one of those 12, 13 press release days. Yeah, that stood out. But I guess it's also like not as it's not as surprising because I think Patrick did tell me that like he was told by APC that there was some insane amount of new lines that they were going to introduce over the next few years. If Padron had 13 or whatever, they had a new pyramid of brands, that would be surprising. All right, here's the Drew Estate question. What impact did Drew Estate's return have on the trade show?
If you're asking me specifically, it was packed every time I went by there. There didn't seem to be a downturn until the very last couple of hours of the last day. I don't know. I mean, I don't know specifically what impact it had, but I'll tell you that it was busy and there were people always in that booth. So certainly they seem to have a lot of participation in the booth itself.
Yeah, I would say it's a bit underwhelming. I think if you had said, I mean, I guess we knew not a year ago this time, but
a bit of what you mean underwhelming in terms of what the impact it had.
I would have thought that Drew Estate would have made a bigger deal about its return. I said that before the show.
Sure.
You know, when historically, when Drew Estate has been at a trade show, it has been outside of Intertobacco. It has been hard to not know that they're there. They have an outsized presence. They are the largest cigar company by volume, at least is my understanding these days. And if they're not the largest, they're in the largest. They're amongst the two largest or three largest, right? Like they are in the uppermost tier when it comes to size, or girth, as our comment section would like to say. And I didn't get the sense that like they brought their normal swagger, I guess, to it. Now again, it's been 5 years since they were last at this trade show. They have been at TPE and Intertobacco in the meantime. But even like at TPE, like Drew Estate tends to be unavoidable. And they weren't up front and center, so that helped to support the like underwhelmingness of it. Their booth was not as elaborate as it has historically been, which we saw at TPE as well. The TPE booth this year is a lot simpler, a lot more efficient. I don't have any complaints. Like if I was running Drew Estate, I would not care about how much of a splash we're making at the trade show. Like the people that are at the trade show are already at the trade show, so we don't need to make the booth any fancier for those people. We just need to make sure that they have the place where they can come and write orders and meet with our sales team. Yeah, it didn't, you know, like something, I don't know how possible it would be, right? But their big release this year for the trade show is the Shade to Black, the second cigar with their collaboration with the band members from Metallica, right? Gurkha had Mike Tyson in its booth, which they have a collaboration with. Espinosa had Guy Fieri in its booth, which they have a partnership with. Did Drew Estate have any Metallica people in their booth?
I did not see anybody there.
Now, to be clear, Metallica is a different level, although Mike Tyson can't be too far off.
I would put Metallica above Mike Tyson. I don't like necessarily either one of them, but I would certainly. But like, if I had to choose, I'd rather see Metallica.
No. I'm not saying in terms of your personal preferences, Brooks. What I'm saying is like, all three of those people are like A-list celebrities, right? Like, they could go to the Grammys or to the Oscars.
Guy Fieri is an A-list celebrity.
Yeah, Guy Fieri is.
Come on.
Do not misunderstand this. Guy Fieri is one of the most successful television stars in the modern era. He is an A-list celebrity.
Okay.
I bet if you had to ask what Guy Fieri's Q score is, you would be very, very surprised. And I bet if you saw his contract with the Food Network, I think you would also be very surprised. He is a very, very popular person when it comes to TV. To me, there's no question about it. I would say he is the third of the bunch, right, in terms of his recognition. Certainly internationally, I doubt that Guy Fieri has the same pull that Metallica or Mike Tyson have. But I guess my point here is like that. I don't know how realistic it is. Metallica is still touring in a way that like Mike Tyson is going to fight Jake Paul here in Dallas in a couple months, but like I don't think it's the same thing, right? But that would have been, I think, kind of what I would have expected from them. It would have been something big.
Yeah.
And I don't think we got that, which is fine. But if you had to ask me a year ago to envision what Drew Estate's presence at this trade show would have been, I think I would have thought it would have been more. For better and worse.
There is one note. Drew Estate was doing something new this year. They were doing a video interviews, 5-minute interviews that they did pretty much the entire time that the show was open. And with various people, you know, retailers and various people like that, that they were going to put up on their social media. And JD was a part of that. Quite a few of those. It looked exhausted after the second day. So that was something new that they definitely were putting more emphasis on. Had a whole studio set up and everything.
I feel like they've had that before. Not necessarily with JD, but I feel like they had like a whole podcast set up at one point.
They've definitely done interviews, but not with JD and not as elaborate as this was.
Got it. All right. Oh, there's that blackened cigar.
There it is.
There's a piece of paper over there, Brooks, that had
Yeah.
our predictions on it.
Oh wow! Look at this. I had one who I was wondering if this is trash. All right. The predictions.
What were they? I can't see.
Let's see what this says here. See if anybody can see it. What does that say?
Your camera is not on autofocus because it needs to get. Nope, that's an 85.
Well, I said 4 and you said 5.
Okay.
How many were?
So.
Other than Legends, which was a given.
Well, was Legends included in that though?
No, it wasn't. That was a given.
But we didn't know it was going to be here, or like on sale.
It wasn't on sale, was it?
Well, I mean, it's shipping.
I feel like you're just including that so you can get to 5.
All right, so Varton's the Dragon was there. The $150 Monte Cristo was there. I don't even know where to start with this. This is the Opus X Society cigar. It does not have an official MSRP, but if it were to have an MSRP, which is not a legally binding term to be quite clear here, it would be $90, but I suspect that a lot of retailers are going to choose to sell it for more than $90 because that is what is being implied here with the lack of MSRP is go ahead and try to sell it for what you think it should be sold for or what you would like to sell it for. That's what, 3? There was also the Placencia and the Humidor.
Correct.
That was over $100, I take it?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so that would be 4. And any others that you saw?
I did not see any other ones that I specifically was told.
Yeah, and Legends could count here. I don't really recall if we excluded it or not. I think that you might win this. I don't know if I'd necessarily count this Opus X Society thing because it doesn't have an MSRP. It doesn't have an MSRP, and it's also $90, which is sort of I would consider to not be like the Varton thing is $97. That's close enough to $100 for me.
Yeah.
From a lot of the higher end stuff, price points we're talking about now. The other problem, so there's two reasons as to why I lose this, and why I looking back on this 5 years from now, it will have a different read on it. Number one is that there's a bunch of stuff that doesn't have price tags on it yet. Whether it's this thing, because they're choosing not to put a price tag on it for weird reasons, or it's the Opus 25, which wouldn't surprise me if it's more than $100 a cigar.
Would not shock me.
Padron
Even the
60,
even the Padron, I would
wouldn't
not
surprise
shock
me if it's $100. Or the other problem is basically the Legends issue, which is that there's a bunch of stuff that is just kind of lingering and who knows when it will ship. So in the Oliva booth, there was Oliva's uber expensive Rolling 20 cigar from last year that still has not shipped. It's new in the sense that it has not shipped. It's not new in the sense that we saw it last year. And so that also could go on this list. Legends would be another thing where it's new and it is now shipping, but also we've seen it for the last couple of years. I do think if you guys are for consumers, I think we are not done with the uber expensive cigar releases. We probably will never be officially done with the category. But I do think that the skepticism internally amongst manufacturers has probably it's probably there, where I don't know how many more cigars from companies that you have not heard from you're going to see or heard of. You're going to see $100 cigars from. I think that ship may have sailed. It will creep up and eventually get there once $100 becomes a normal price for cigars. But it definitely seems like the pushback has happened. And also, I'm not sure how many of these cigars are selling. I think that might be the other thing. And as there's more and more of them that hit the market, the reality is that there is a limited consumer base that is willing to buy these cigars. It is larger than you think it is, but it is still quite small. And even quite frankly, the LFD, right? I don't think it will be $100, but it wouldn't be stunning if it's $100.
I would not be shocked, but I don't think it is.
Yeah. All right. I think that concludes the that part of it. Let's take some questions while I don't talk into the microphone. All right. We'll do these chronologically until we run out of them. Oh. I feel like this was it made it onto the list of questions, but I guess it didn't make the slide for it. Evil Empire Cigar Society wants to know what's the mood on moving to New Orleans next year. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, this trade show, which has been in Las Vegas since 2016, is going to be in New Orleans next year. It will also be in New Orleans, from what I understand, in 2026 as well. Brooks, you got to have more New Orleans conversations than I did, probably. What was your takeaway on that?
Mixed, I would say. People like New Orleans.
Let's start with the positive. Like, what?
Positive is it's not in July in New Orleans. That's the positive.
Okay.
I think some people seem to like the idea of a change, of having somewhere new. But the vast majority of people that I talked to were wanting to, would prefer to have it in Vegas. Everything is here. We have a way of doing things, and I think that New Orleans is going to be there's a lot of what ifs in New Orleans that we just don't necessarily know about at the moment.
Such as
where to smoke, where to.
Well, you can't smoke inside. So.
Exactly. So
it's problem solved.
Smoke outside. That's gonna be a big what if. And
how's it gonna be a what if? It's smoke outside. Well, you mean like what if it rains?
What if there's?
I think that what will probably happen. I suspect that the PCA will set up some sort of tent. They did this in New Orlando actually. Where they set up a temporary structure to use at late nights. That way cigar companies, if they want to have events there, they can sort of sponsor the tent. But to
answer your question, the vast majority of people would prefer to be in Vegas that I talked to.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's the case. The answer for this trade show is for it to be at the Venetian. I think is the reality. If you talk to the decision makers, whether that's the people that own cigar companies or the people that are executives at cigar companies, the vast majority of them would prefer for it to be at the Venetian. That may not be the vast majority of attendees, because not everyone stays at the Venetian. A lot of people rightfully find it to be way too expensive for a hotel room. It is not cheap, or they don't like staying there for any number of reasons, and so they stay off-site. But a lot of people do stay at the Venetian, and those people, the people that own cigar companies and the decision makers at cigar companies, they really, really like hanging out with one another after the show ends. And the Venetian is the best place to facilitate that. I've yet to find a place that does it better. Resorts World was not bad in that regard. But when you get outside of the Venetian, even at the Venetian, some people stay at the Wynn. Some people stay at Red Rocks, right? Some people stay at TI across the street. But when you're at the Venetian, you have way more of the people staying at a singular hotel than you do, to my knowledge, anywhere else where this trade show is going to be held, whether it's in Las Vegas or New Orleans or Orlando or Tampa, none of which are options. It's to me, I think they should sacrifice the being there in July to be at the Venetian. Obviously, they felt otherwise, and that's fine. It's their trade show, their decisions. But if I was in charge, I would obviously like to get a lot more feedback, and maybe they have that feedback, but at least the feedback that I get from the people that I talk to, which is a certain type of people for the most part. I don't talk to as many retailers as I do cigar companies. The Venetian seems to be the answer. On that note, Brooks, this was the first year where it's been a 3-day trade show. Historically, it's been 3 full days and then a 4th day that's kind of a half day. Did you think that I guess here's the thing with the 3-day show. I'm for the move to get rid of the 4th day, but there's no real positives to getting rid of the 4th day other than you remove complaints about the 4th day if you're the PCA. And the only real upside to getting rid of the 4th day from anyone else's perspective, to my knowledge, is that if you are an exhibitor, it is cheaper because you don't have to be there that extra day. You're still going to have to be there an extra day because you're going to need to help pack your booth up, which has to happen anyways. But most of the companies would stay with the 4th day, would stay another day after the 4th day. So with this, they're staying the 3 days of the trade show plus 1 more day, as opposed to 4 days of the trade show plus 1 more day, which is a savings. It's not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but for some of these big companies, it's probably 10 to 20 grand when all said and done. Did you think it made a difference, and it didn't seem to me. It seemed like day 3, which historically has been much lower attended than days 1 and 2, was still much lower attended from what I gathered than days 1 and 2.
Absolutely. I got that impression, and I talked to a number of different retailers, not manufacturers, but I talked to a number of different retailers who told me that they were leaving on Sunday night because they didn't want to stay on Monday. And they were specifically made the choice to leave on Sunday night.
Or Monday morning.
The ones I talked to said Sunday night. Certainly there were some that left on Monday as well. But it was pretty universal that they were done after the second day and they were going home.
Well, I think for a lot of these retailers, you don't need to be there for 3 days. I think you can get your business done in 2.
And that just makes it, that third day, just turns it basically, into another version of the fourth day. Whereas, look.
Well, no. I don't think that was the case. I think that third day has been this for a while.
It's certainly fewer people attending. Absolutely, 100%.
It's been a noticeable drop off from days 2 to days 3 for me.
Yes, but to me, I would say that there was a noticeable drop off even from the day 3 from past years to day 3 of this year, especially at the end of day 3.
Oh, no.
It was absolutely.
I vehemently disagree with you.
I think absolutely empty.
I think that where there was the noticeable drop off on day 3 compared to years prior was the morning of day 3. I felt like in the afternoon of day 3, it felt as busy as it normally does.
I will agree that when I walked out there onto the morning of day 3, there was virtually nobody there. Right?
That was different.
You and I and Brian were.
We were there for that day.
Yeah.
That was different. But the afternoon of day 3 felt like it normally does. It's not as well of attended as a day. It's never been.
Right.
The answer to this, from my perspective, as someone that does not run a trade show and has very little skin in this game, is that this trade show should be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I think if you do that, especially if it's in Las Vegas, it will mean that you'll see some people that will fly in on Wednesday and sort of you'll have not necessarily 2 evenly split halves, but you'll see some people that will show up for the later 2 days. My understanding is the big pushback against that is that it would make setup more expensive because setup would take place over the weekends, which means that union labor would be getting paid additional amounts of money. I'm guessing that it's probably better still to do that because you'll save money, especially in Las Vegas, on hotel rooms. Hotel rooms on Friday and Saturday nights at most of these casinos tend to be double what they are during the week. So if you run the show Tuesday through Thursday, that means that people like me and some of the people that come in super early historically, we would be there Saturday probably till Friday. But if for somebody like you, Brooks, you would probably come in Sunday. And most people would come in probably Sunday night or Monday. And I think in this instance, they would come in Monday. They would want to sleep at home Saturday and Sunday. They'd fly in Monday. Maybe the seminar day gets less attended. But the big advantage is you're not forcing people to spend Friday and Saturday nights away from home. I think that's a big, big deal.
Absolutely. Would it make it more expensive for the show itself, though?
No. I mean, they have less. No, because you think about it, right? Like this year, they had the convention center from, I imagine, Thursday at a minimum. Setup starts, they don't start setting it up on Friday, right? Like, they got to start earlier than that. So, historically, I come into the trade show, on Tuesday or Wednesday. By Wednesday, they're definitively in there at the Venetian. I can't speak to the LVCC. So, no, they still have a week. It's just shifting around which days are setup days, which days are sort of live action days. I'm suggesting the live action day should be Tuesday through Thursday, or Monday through Thursday, and the setup day should be the other ones. Right now, it's the complete opposite. The live action days are Friday to an extent, and then Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I think we're doing it backwards. Again, survey people will figure this out. All right. John McTavish, do you believe you could adequately cover, and would you cover the PCA if the show was reduced to 2 days? Adequately, probably not, but yeah, we'd still cover it, right?
Yep.
Wouldn't be like, we're not going to get to everyone, so therefore we will get to no one. That seems like a poor choice. Though I certainly understand the sentiment of at what point does this become too challenging? This is definitely a question asked in good faith. Dom, sorry. Is it true that the industry is trending towards bigger, girthier cigars? Brooks, I'll let you handle this one.
Trending? Yes. I would say.
Any other feedback?
Nope.
Okay.
You?
I guess if you want to talk about the comically large ones, which I think is what Dom's probably most interested in, the Asylum April Fools, the Aganorsa JFR, the cigar that shall not be named. Like, those are two relatively newer cigars, but I mean, I don't get the sense that that's...
Certainly there, I mean...
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not trending towards 28 ring gauge cigars, so there's that. Any feedback on the Rojas release? That would be the Rojas 10th anniversary, which I believe is already shipping.
I have not tried it.
Did you hear anyone talking about it at the show?
No. Nothing specific about that. But, I mean, that doesn't mean anything, honestly.
Griffin wants to know, is there any part of the show moving away from Vegas that you will miss next year in New Orleans?
You'd be able to smoke inside?
That would be one.
I mean, food's good in New Orleans, so at least there's that.
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of things, if we're being quite honest. As Brooks alluded to earlier, Vegas is one of these cities that's built for conventions. There's a lot of advantages to that. The Venetian itself was founded, like, Shel Nadelson, who made the Venetian into what it is, he used to run a trade show called Computex. He realized that from his experience running a trade show that if there was a hotel and casino property that you could basically just sort of lock these people in the property that were going to conventions in Las Vegas, and you made it so that they never had any reason to leave, that you would make a lot of money doing that. And so he bought the Sands and added the Venetian and then added the Palazzo. And that hotel was really built around the idea that convention business was very, very lucrative if done right. And in particular, sort of like my idea that these dates should change, the other thing was that you could have the convention traffic in the building Monday through Thursday, and then Friday through Sunday you could get the vacation traffic and the gaming traffic and the party crowds and the bachelor parties and the bachelorette parties and all those things. And the Venetian, seemingly, as evidenced by the amount of money that the Edelsons have accumulated, seems like it was right about that idea. And well, it's not cheap, and you have to pay for it all. A lot of those conveniences of being in one place, and if you wanted to, you could go from the airport to the Venetian. Not this year, right? But in previous years, you go from the airport to the Venetian, never have to leave the Venetian, go to all the events that the PCA had, and then go back to the airport.
That's not a good thing necessarily.
No, it's not great, but having that option to do that is very nice, because there are some days, and we experience it, where there's some days where it's like, you know what, I don't really, like, I know there are a lot of great restaurants here in Las Vegas, and there are a lot of great restaurants in the Venetian, but today I just need to have something simple, and I don't really want to think about it, and I don't want to have to get in an Uber and go somewhere and wait in line. I can just walk out of my hotel room. I don't have to get my bags all ready. I can leave them up in my room, so I can walk 15 minutes back to my room to go get them after I'm done eating breakfast, but I can eat breakfast in my shorts or whatever, go upstairs, change, grab my bag, go downstairs, do work, drop my bag back off, go to dinner, go to bed, and never have to leave the building, never have to get in a line for an Uber. That's a big advantage. There are a lot of restaurants that we go to off strip. I'm not going to name them because we seemingly have given those tips away to way too many people, and now they are crowded, that we really enjoy. Again, New Orleans, one of the best food cities in America, one of the best music cities in America. So there'll be some things that we enjoy about New Orleans. And look, the amount of money in Las Vegas is also nice. The facilities in Las Vegas are nice. Resorts World is a step down from the Venetian in terms of its hotel rooms. However, the rooms that we stayed in at Resorts World are better than most of the hotel rooms that exist in America. And it's something that you forget about, because the reality is that the worst room at the Venetian is better than 99.9% of the rooms in major metropolitan areas around the world. And so it's really nice in New Orleans for all that's great about it. I do not get the sense, and I'm not an expert on New Orleans, but I don't get the sense that the investment into New Orleans has returned post Katrina or really, accelerated, right? There's charm to New Orleans that Vegas will never have, but
charm only gets you so far.
Well, but like Vegas is nicer. I don't think there's any question about that. And that'll be missed. Somebody wants to know, have you guys honestly smoked a $100 cigar and thought it was worth it? Well, we honestly have smoked a $100 cigar. But worth it. I've always believed that worth it is more about how much money you have in your bank account than it is about how much money the cigar cost. Because if you have no money in your bank account, or if you have $99 in your bank account, then a $100 cigar is never going to be worth it. It could be the greatest cigar ever made in the history of humanity, and it would not be worth it. So I think it's always very tough there. What I will say is that some of these uber expensive cigars I have smoked, the Davidoff Oro Blanco stands out as one, where that cigar to me tastes different than the other cigars that Davidoff makes. Is it a major difference? No. But I've yet to smoke a Colorado Claro or a Millennium Blend that tastes like what the Oro Blanco gives me. Would I personally pay the $450-ish premium over a Colorado, or now $550-ish premium over a Colorado Claro? The answer is no, as evidenced by the fact that I have not gone and sought out Oro Blancos other than for the reviews, because I'm content paying $50 for a Colorado Claro and saying that was good enough. Brooks?
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed being able to smoke the Oro Blanco for the top 25 that year, and I've enjoyed smoking the cigars, the expensive cigars that we've reviewed, that either I reviewed or made it on the list. But in terms of actually spending my own money on a $100 cigar, probably not.
What is your thoughts on PCA going to Tampa as a different site? Well, my understanding is that this has not actually been taken all that seriously. Tampa has been brought up largely by J.C. Newman, which is based in Tampa, and to some degree by Fuente, which is also based in Tampa. And they have really promoted that. Tampa is known as the Cigar City. The Newmans in particular, but the Fuentes as well, have really cultivated relationships with local government in Tampa that is very, very different than how I think most cigar companies, especially like the ones in Miami, I don't think have the same sort of investment in local politics like the Newmans do in Tampa. And not like Drew Newman is running for mayor. Rather, Drew Newman is constantly meeting with Tampa City leaders, whether it's elected officials or Chamber of Commerce people or the EBOR neighborhood council or whatever, right? They host some of those meetings at the Newman's headquarters. He's very invested and has made that a big deal. And his uncle and his father before him, who are still there as well, they have really been committed to that. And again, the Fuentes as well. That has led to Tampa being considered as an option. My understanding is that the Tampa Convention Center would very much like to have this trade show. Jay Davis, who's a board member, mentioned that the convention space is too small. I don't know how realistic that is, because I think that the PCA's contract with the Venetian called for an excessive amount of convention space that seems quite clearly not to be the case. I also think that if the convention, I think the convention should continue to get smaller, like the show floor space, for the reasons that we saw on day one. Turns out when the overall floor is smaller, even if you have roughly the same amount of people, it feels more packed. It's basic sort of spacing and presence, right? It's called density in the trade show business, from what I understand. I think that we could fit in the Tampa Convention Center is what I'm guessing. And we may not be able to fit exactly. I do think that there's some logistical concerns about moving in and moving out that might be an issue with Tampa. But I also think that the PCA hasn't been as clear that Tampa is not really a consideration. From what I understand, what I've been told privately is that it's not like off the record, but what I've been told, not in public-facing settings by the PCA, the evidence suggests that Tampa is not really being considered. And I think that we have been kind of led to believe that it's always an option, which maybe that's the right approach, right? But I do think that the PCA needs to be clear of hey, this is not an option. Here's why, and here's what it would take for it to become an option. Maybe that's something they can do. Maybe that's not. But I don't think that is the case. Brandon, will TB have better attendance next year just because people prefer Vegas over New Orleans? Yes. I think that TB will have a better year next year because there are going to be some people, especially on the West Coast, where it's easy for them to get to Vegas, less easy for them to get to New Orleans. I think that there are going to be some people that say, screw it, we're doing Vegas. We're going to see the same people, more or less. There are going to be some people that aren't going to be there, but we can deal with those people, and we'd rather go to the casinos in Las Vegas than the casinos on the river in New Orleans. Jay Davis, Charlie, a huge difference, which means Brooks, I'm going to have you answer this question. Brooks, a huge difference this year was samples because the relative humidity was much higher than in July. Thoughts?
I only smoke like 1 or 2 cigars, so I can't give a sample, an example, an opinion on that.
Yeah, I'm the worst person to ask about this. I historically try not to take home samples from the trade show. But like the relative humidity was much higher than in July. Like that could mean it went from like 6% to 26%. I don't know. I mean, I think if you were going to have a conversation about samples, the thing that stood out to me more this year was there was a lot of companies that didn't have product that they thought they were going to have a week before the show. That always happens. It did seem like there was more happening this year. Allison, thoughts on the women's event that happened? Brooks, did you see this happening Friday, last hour of the show?
I did not know.
I was at the ST DuPont booth and walked by it. I mentioned it in my day 3 recap. I was very happy to see that it was well attended. It looked like there was more people there, and it looked like it was mostly women, but there were some people that looked like men that were sitting in that lounge area because I think it was just one of the like open PCA lounges. I did not go in because it seemed like it was a women's event, which meant that it wasn't for me. I don't know what was discussed there, but like I mentioned in my recap, I was pleasantly surprised to see it as attended as it was. And I think that the PCA should continue to do it. Maybe don't do it the last hour of the trade show because that does seemingly give the message that this may not be the most important thing, or maybe it is the most important thing. But given all the conversation we have about day 3 attendance, maybe make it the end of day 2. But you know, an industry that women, especially in the U.S. here, are underrepresented in the industry, especially in like leadership roles. That seems great. Obviously, in the grand scheme of the cigar industry, women are a major role. When you go to cigar factories, it's not 90% men, except at the LFD rolling room. For the most part, you know, it's 50-50, and there's some rooms you walk into and it's more women than men. And so, you know, I'd love to see more representation, and kudos to the PCA for organizing something, and hopefully the people that attended felt like they got something out of it.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing, and I think it should be expanded in whenever possible. It's, you know, anything to include more people, especially women in the industry, is a good thing.
All right, Greg Zimmerman says you can smoke inside in New Orleans. I think that there should be a clarification here. You can smoke inside the trade show floor in New Orleans, but my understanding is New Orleans smoking ban, which ironically was passed like 2 months before we were last in New Orleans, you cannot smoke in bars and restaurants except for cigar bars. I could be wrong about that, but unless the law has changed in New Orleans, you can smoke on the trade show floor in New Orleans, but not inside bars and restaurants, unless it's a cigar bar. Brooks, what leaf is used to provide Davidoff with its unique profile?
I don't know, but I'm going to say it's probably a combination, most likely, I would think, a combination of tobacco and processing.
All right.
If I had to guess.
The rest of the questions are generally speaking about some sort of sex-related topic, so do you want to answer them? Or?
I don't.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank everyone for tuning in and asking questions. Hopefully we gave you some insights. I don't know. It's always weird. There aren't that many people that we can see that are watching these things, but then we go to these trade shows, and seemingly more people than like what the statistics tell us are watching these shows come up to people like Brooks and I and say how great these shows are. We wanted to give you guys something. Obviously, this was not the normal half-wheel PCA coverage that you have come to expect over the years. The hope is that we will be back to our normal circus next year in New Orleans. We still are not done. Don't worry. There's plenty of news stories about ST DuPont and LA Blue still coming, and hopefully some other things as well from Brooks, Brian, and Patrick as well. But you know, we're just trying to get through it. This has been a hell of a 3 months. I really hope that we never have to do this again in terms of how much was condensed into a very short period of time. I'd like to thank Brooks for this is not something that he enjoys doing. Really all of this, right? All of Half Wheel. But this in particular, he's not fond of. You know, it's
allegedly a holiday weekend. I don't even know what day of the week it is at this point.
it's
So
Sunday.
I appreciate all his work. Brian, who also was in Las Vegas and did a bunch of work while he was there. Patrick did not make it to Las Vegas, but if you've read the site, you know how much work Patrick has been doing over the last month. It's been a lot of press releases all at once. And to Kyle, who I think was watching, hopefully we'll have you back in New Orleans next year. And thank you to everyone for tuning in for these shows, reading the website. It's been another great month, traffic-wise and good. Like, glad that not all of this work is being done in silence. To the person that wanted to know if we were going to ever review cigars again or if we smoke cigars, yes, reviews will come. We just need to get through this PCA stuff, and it will happen. Finally, I'd like to thank Rocky Patel and Drew Estate for sponsoring our trade show coverage. We have mentioned not as much this year, but it wasn't cheap. It never is cheap, it's important that the cigar companies are willing to support it, and it does not lose. I don't lose sight of the fact that we have a bunch of companies in this industry that are willing to pay for journalism. You can have your thoughts about us or about our competitors in the space, but the cigar industry is quite small. It is very fortunate that it has as many journalists as it does. It doesn't have many, to be quite clear, but the fact that there are as many people that can do this as a full-time job, if you had to scale this to other industries, it would not look this way. And we are very fortunate that Drew Estate and Rocky Patel, as well as our other sponsors, are willing to support Half Wheel and allow us to do this. And hopefully you guys enjoy it and enjoy this Drew Estate ad.
Half Wheel's coverage of the 2024 PCA Convention and Trade Show is sponsored by Drew Estate's Black & S